All right, I think we're good to go, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, welcome to EFL semifinals. Congratulations to all teams for making it thus far. Belgrade B, BUETC, JU1, and DUTY. My name is Suyong. I'm going to be chairing this round with my panelists. Can you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Hello, everyone. My name is Tin. My preferred pronouns are he or they.
Hi, my name is Simon. I use they, them pronouns.
All right, thank you. I think we can go on to speakers, starting from opening government. Can you introduce yourself and tell us preferred pronouns, if any?
Hello, I am Lazar Popovic. I don't have any preferred pronouns.
And Mikhailo Babic, I also don't have any preferred pronouns.
Hi, I'm Amin Hawk, and I do not have any preferred pronouns. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Fardinur. I don't have any preferred pronouns.
Closing government.
Maciej speaking first. He or they, please.
And Patrick speaking second. He or they, please.
Closing opposition, Feliani here, she or her.
I think you're muted, second speaker.
Leonardo, he or they, please.
All right, thank you very much. I think we're good to go. Under the motion that this House would break up Facebook, let's call upon Prime Minister to start the debate.
Okay, I'll be starting just in a sec so I can start my timer, and I'm starting now. Okay, what we're proposing is that we break up Facebook on its smaller units or on the subsidiaries that are now in the possession of Facebook as a corporation. Why we think this is necessary in order to fight the Facebook's monopoly and the Facebook's influence on the market of social media. We think that the Facebook's position currently on the state of social media is such that it's the only and the sole competitor on that market, and is bringing way too much money and way too much information into its pool of information that, based on the known bad policies that we have from the Facebook, we are safe to assume that they're selling that information because of the past situations in which this was happening. We think that the monopoly situation that the Facebook is in is so strict and so bad that not even any lawsuits or any states can influence or provide any good quality measures to keep them in check. Why we think this will necessarily bring some change and a positive change to the structure of the society that is based around social media and on the marketplace of social medias. We think that by breaking the building of Facebook, the breaking of the corporation on its small units such as Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, we're not eliminating any of the known uses of those medias, but we are limiting the monopoly situation in which the Facebook is in. How we're doing that? We're doing that because now Instagram, if it's no longer a part of Facebook, will have more incentive to change their policies. And I'm going to explain to you why now neither of those social media or parts of Facebook don't have any incentive to change this. That is because of the sole reason that the Facebook is a corporation that most of the people around the globe are addicted to. Why are they addicted to that? Because it's something that is known to them. It's something that they're used to. They are used to checking their phones every 25 seconds. They are used to following a lot of people on Instagram, a lot of groups on Facebook, a lot of places in which they feel safe on the media, but they're addicted and they don't want to do any kind of boycott or sabotage of Facebook in the cases of selling their data, selling their information, bad policies, placing fake news, placing neo-Nazi propaganda, placing a lot of propaganda, influencing the voting, the electoral process, and so on and so forth. people are going to turn to the other side when they spot this behavior, because they're used to using these medias. And why we think this is bad? We think this is bad because this way we're giving Facebook too much influence and too much power to not change its stance on a lot of pressing matters, because they don't have any incentive to change it, because people will still be using Facebook. Now, even though people will still be using Facebook, Facebook will be able to be held more accountable. Why is that? Because now you're going to have to stand up for what you're doing. You're going to have to sacrifice a part of the gain you have now. You're going to have to sacrifice a lot of information that are now in your possession, and those are information that are coming from WhatsApp, Instagram, other places that are in the possession of Facebook, and you have to limit your power in order to be still competitive on the market, because now the competition on the social media marketplace is going to be the social medias that are already now in your possession. So Facebook will become a competitor of yours. I will take a POI from the opening. Okay, no.
Thank you. Wait.
Okay,
yeah. So how are you gonna make Facebook accountable if you're just gonna break it? How is Facebook gonna accountable for Instagram if you just break Facebook and Instagram?
Okay. Facebook will not be held accountable for Instagram. It will be held accountable only for Facebook, because now the policies that are currently bad and will stay bad probably in Facebook as such a social media, we will be holding him accountable, because people are going to have an opportunity to raise their voices, to file a lawsuit, because Facebook won't have as much power and as much money as it has in the current state, because he will no longer have the capital on the social media such as Instagram and so on and so forth. Because Instagram now won't be held accountable if the bad policies or bad practices are on the social media, because people won't stop using it. People will just turn a blind eye and say, well, okay, I'm using this, it's free, I don't give a fuck. They have any of my nudes that I send, any of my photos that I posted, any of the videos I posted. They don't give a fuck about that, because they know that they have no way of influencing those. They can only choose and stop using these. Why there is no alternatives to Facebook right now, and why are there alternatives to let's say Google, who also has bad practices in information trading and such? Because now there are alternatives that are easier to access, such as DuckDuckGo, Brave, a lot of browsers that you can use that are substitutes to Google, and there is no such thing as another Facebook or a social media that is so consumed by a whole deal of population. All your friends are on Facebook. A lot of information gets placed on Facebook and is influencing every part of the social life. We think that if we fight the monopoly stance that the Facebook is in, we can gain more control over that situation, and we can more likely produce better policies or enforce better policies based on based on them not having the monopoly situation in which they're untouchable, such as they are now. They're currently untouchable. No lawsuits can fight them. No lawsuits can break them. We think that by breaking them down to smaller units, we can focus on employing the laws and enforcing some policies that need to be changed in the status quo on them easier than we can do it by not breaking them. We think that as long as Facebook as a corporation is a price maker, dictator of policies, dictator of standards, we think that as long as this is the practice, we won't have any chances of enforcing some good policies that are influencing our lives, such as censorship, such as not allowing Nazi propaganda, such as not allowing voting processes. And I'm proud to propose. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Speaker, for that speech. Let's invite Leader of Opposition.
Thank you. Wait, let me start my stopwatch. Okay, I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. The government side has come up with very compelling arguments, but and I'll be giving rebuttals to them with my principal arguments and my impacts. They will have the integrated rebuttals to his arguments. So first of all, I'll show you that keeping Facebook incorporated intact will actually help us pursue the goals the government side has shown you will actually have more impact by keeping Facebook incorporated intact, and how actually in keeping not breaking up Facebook will give us more benefits than their words. First of all, why keeping Facebook intact is necessary? Because as long as we're keeping Facebook intact, the services Facebook is giving us is remaining free, and this is very helpful. This is very important in this connected world. This world is connected. Everyone is trying to be connected. Everyone is actually moving their business, moving their event management, moving their everything, startups, everything in the online services. So as long as these services are interconnected, people are having the best benefits of being connected and just doing their business as cheaply as possible. Yes, there are certain harms to that, but breaking Facebook up will actually increase those harms instead of decreasing them. How is that? The harms government side has shown us that the monopoly, first of all the monopoly, second of all the data stealing, both of these problems will still remain in a world where Facebook is broken up. How is that? I'm going to show you that. First of all, if we break up Facebook, we're actually making it harder for us to spearhead a implement a regulatory system against all of these specific apps that are built upon the data of users. Every single free service is not actually free. It's you are using it by paying with your data, and all of these apps are and if we break Facebook up, we'll have to go after all of these apps at once. So the regulatory committee will actually have hard time spearheading going after each and every one of them separately, instead of just going after one face, Mark Zuckerberg. If we go after just Mark Zuckerberg, because Mark Zuckerberg has an image to protect, because Mark Zuckerberg has a responsibility towards his shareholders. And if we just go after if the Congress, if the regulatory committee just go after this one single person, this one single company, it will actually help us regulate Facebook more than when it is broken up. Also, if Facebook has an image to maintain, if we go after Facebook itself, then there will be losses. There might be losses in share prices. And this will create, and this will give Mark Zuckerberg an incentive to abide by the regulations, which is what AOC is trying to do. She has called up Mark Zuckerberg in the congressional has held accountable. Mark Zuckerberg held accountable in front of the Congress, and is actually trying to push forward more regulatory laws. Second of all, what will happen if we broke up Facebook? Now, if we break up Facebook, there will be oligopoly. How is that? Because these smaller if we break up Facebook, then these companies will just break it up into multiple companies like Facebook, Messenger, WhatsApp, etc. These companies still have that same goal, revenue making, and these companies will just form an oligopoly and just go after these oligopoly, and they'll just be controlling the market, no different than before. And that and that will just bring us to our first argument, that we cannot just go, that it will make harder for the Congress or for the regulatory committee to go after each and every one of them, instead of just going after one. Second of all, that how is breaking up Facebook will actually incentivize these companies to monopolize steal more data, because as Facebook is now, Facebook can just mitigate any loss their one app has with just with the revenue of another app. So if there are certain incentive to Facebook to actually abide by the regulation, as long as the regulatory committee can hold Mark Zuckerberg accountable. But if we just break up Facebook and each and every company just becomes one singular companies, then these companies, even if they ever face any loss, they'll just have to make up that loss with more advertisement. And we all know that more advertisement means more data. The users data gets stolen more often, and that just goes counterproductive with the world OG is trying to show us. Also, the OG is giving us this argument that if we break up Facebook, then we'll have this paradigm shift in addiction, that people will slowly drift away from Facebook, and they'll lose their addiction, and actually will not turn a blind eye to their data stealing practices. But understand this: these people are already addicted. You cannot make them non-addicted and just make them aware of something just by breaking them up. You need more regulations and more awareness, not breaking up a single company. Also, Facebook as a company can contribute more to technological advancement instead of just being a single one. How is that? Because Facebook can now fund more projects, can fund the projects for Internet of Things, and as long as there are, and also we have to understand this, as long as there is in advancement to technology, there will be this spying and data losing problems. We cannot just stop technological advancement. We cannot stop people from being connected, more connected. So what we need to do is implement more regulatory system where we can hold Facebook as the face of this incorporation a whole, and make it submit to this regulatory system, not break them up and make it hard for the people to for the regulatory committees or the governments to go after these companies. Also, my second speaker will come up and give you more arguments on why why breaking up Facebook Incorporated will actually make people lose money and have losses in their business, and some other arguments. Thank you, honorable speaker. Here is my speech.
All right, thank you, Speaker, for that speech. Let's invite Deputy Prime Minister.
Okay, am I clearly audible?
Yep, you are.
All right, so I can start in 3, 2, 1. All right, I just want to turn around and look at the opposition's case and actually show why they make our case for us. Like, first thing is first, when they say it's going to be harder for us to stop these bad practices because now we have to make more lawsuits than just one lawsuit. Notice here that the difference isn't the way that what we care about is not how much lawsuits we can make, but how many of them we can win and how much incentives these companies have to abide by our laws and to try and make better practices. And why Facebook doesn't have that incentives when it's this huge conglomerate, and why all of these individual companies will have those incentives. And here, the first thing is first, why we can't, right now, Facebook is too influential, has too much data, has too much money, and is also protecting the interests of a lot of people in power just by being this one company that holds the way to 90% of information that people see. It's really hard to influence them. Those are so first things first, they're very rich, so they can hire best lawyers. They can they can, even if they lose a lawsuit, they can pay and still be at the win. And more importantly, when Facebook loses, when you say they have a bad reputation, it's not the same if they are also owning 6 other apps that most of the people who use those other apps don't have a fucking clue that Facebook owns them. So if they see Facebook is stealing data, they'll think, oh shit, Facebook is stealing data, I will use Facebook less, but they will still use a myriad of other apps that are controlled by Facebook that they literally don't know are controlled by Facebook, because it's not that easy to find out what are all the apps that are owned by Facebook unless you're rigorously searching, which is not something that the most people do on their daily basis. And so you are also having the reduced chance of boycott on your side. So so what you say is with all those things combined, like Facebook like really does not have much incentives to change. They can just like continue having those lawsuits, continue maybe losing the image of Facebook, and that's something that you literally admit on your side of the government, on your side of opposition. Like Facebook now can cover up their losses with these other companies' gains, and that is actually what works on our side. On our side, they can't cover up like a bad lawsuit with all those other gains, so they have to change their policies. They can't cover up like the fact that they have done something bad in the media by like changing it on some other apps, because now they have to change that policy if they want to stay competitive on the market. And also, one more thing. First thing that you say, like these services won't be free. We do not agree with that. We think like now in the free market, these services, some of them can try to maybe go paid, some of them can try continuing with ads, but can still, despite having ads, they can just offer better privacy policies than Facebook. And if more people care about that, and that is something, that's the best that we can prove, that we can give on this side. If people really care about that, then in our world, they have an opportunity to show that to the companies and also to the advertisers that want to advertise to them, because it's more important to the advertiser how many people use a certain app, which will now be directly competing, for example, Instagram with Facebook. And if Instagram sees like many people care about data and privacy, as we think many people actually do, just right now they literally don't have a choice but to go to all the Facebook's mass data selling apps, and those apps can't go against Facebook's like major idea, even though that might bring them profit, because Facebook has figured out that's the way that we are running it, and those apps cannot fight because Facebook is literally their boss. And if it's not their boss, if they start fighting it like WhatsApp has started, it will just have enough money to go ahead and buy them off, as monopolies usually do. So if it's really important to people, as we think it really is, people will go to the apps that protect their data better. And with that, those apps will have more users. And with that, those advertisers will want to advertise to those users more. And that's why those apps will make more money. And that's also why we have market incentives to improve these bad policies. And that's like two incentives. Like first, incentive on the basis of not being able to win the lawsuit, because like right now they're so rich because they have all these different different sources of profit. They cannot be stopped and cannot ever be won. A lawsuit can never be won by the country, which is, notice, also not bad just because of the things that are happening right now, but also long-term impacts of this can be terrible, because we have no fucking idea what new things Facebook can implement in the future, which will right now, which we may deem wrong. And there are high chances of that, as we can see that most of their policies, they're meddling in politics, they're meddling in like sources of information, and what things they show to people have become more and more extreme because it brings them more engagement, brings them more money. Like you're literally, whatever next thing they think they can get away with, they probably can. Because as we explained, it's really hard to attack their image, and it's really hard to attack them in the court of law. So now I will be taking CO.
How do you say that the algorithm that is being used by Facebook will also be used by their other competitors, which means that the good practices that you want to champion?
All right. Like just once again, in your like best case that every single company does that, it's just like mute. It's just like, all right, then we lose on that, but we can still then, it's easier for us to force to ban that algorithm if we want by suing all those companies, because they are now smaller companies. Each of them is defending their own image. So each lawsuit against Instagram directly hurts Instagram. Each lawsuit against WhatsApp directly hurts WhatsApp. All those things that the costs of the lawsuit are much harder for them to bear because they're now smaller, have smaller profits. And also boycotts hurt them more. So there will be incentives for them, as we have proven to you, to not use these algorithms as rigorously if that is something that people will push for. And even if not, the governments are already pushing for this privacy protection. They just can't beat Facebook because it has too much money and also too much influence on many governments. Many governments would rather be allies with Facebook, because just by being allies with Facebook, they can be allies with everybody else and protect all of its bad data policies. But right now, when there are many different companies, at least the governments won't ally with all of them, because it will be there will be too much public pressure to at least stop some of them. So there's certainly more data protection on our side, and there's certainly more incentives to stop Facebook doing something terrible in the future. And that is why it beats all the small negligible impacts like business profit margins or something like that. And that would be all from my side. So vote opening government.
All right, thank you, Speaker, for that speech. Let's invite Deputy Leader of Opposition.
Am I clearly audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so let's start it. So if I sum up all the golf cases, the cases they have put so far is that Facebook are too much influential. Facebook take too much data. They have more money, and what they want to do is they want to apply regulation, and they want to secure data. And now, at first, I will try to break those to main two argument of them that if we break up Facebook incorporation, and then how it will be hard for us to regulate them and to secure the data. At the very first. Like when you break up Facebook, means now there are Facebook, now there are Instagram, now there are WhatsApp, means we have to fight against 5 or 6 companies, 5 or 6 tech companies, means there are 5 or 6 type of users, means all the users are divided into various apps, and means when you have to then apply lawsuit against various companies, means now you have to put much effort, means now have to now when you are a government, now you have to put much effort, and also the protest will not be as strong when you will protest against a company, because now rather than having a single enemy, now God had to fight 5 or 6 enemies, means now they have to push more effort, and then the protest will be diluted, means it will be hard for them to apply regulation on those companies singly, rather than putting a regulation on Facebook alone, which will also go then implied for the other subsidiaries or marginals they have when they are as a incorporation. As a result, regulation will be tougher in their case, and regulation will be easier in our case. Then second thing is the data. Now all the companies will have similar data, but now there are 5 or 6 sources of data to those companies. Means now there are 5 or 6 data servers. When on the other hand, when we are using Facebook as incorporation, means now they are on that data server, means if you apply restriction on one, means now all the data can be secured. Now you can easily protect all the data. But when there are 5 or 6 data servers, means now if anything happens, the one data server will be leaked all those data. Means protecting a single data server is much more easier than protecting 5 or 6 data servers. So privacy will be held in our side. The second thing is that when if we break Facebook, there will be oligopoly. Means there are now 5 or 6 companies who will merge, will work together, even though they are separate, but they will work together and will try to get the government lobby, because business are run for profit, and for profit you need to government lobbying. And so what will happen that when there are Facebook incorporation, means there are one company, means there are one person for responsible for this, Mark Zuckerberg. If anything happens with Facebook, means the face image of Mark Zuckerberg will be down. Means the share market will be, means the share market will be down. Means the Facebook profit will be down. But when there are 5 or 6 companies, the impact of having a lawsuit on one company will not be have that much impact, because the users are less, means the face image are low, means the impact of share market will be less than this. So when Facebook will work as an incorporation, means they are now more responsible to holding the reputation, means cause having because they have now a single face value, and any impact on those face image will have a large impact on incorporation as a whole. Means now Facebook are more responsible to hold the face value. The second thing is that other thing is that now what we get from when Facebook works as an incorporation means when Facebook works as an incorporation means Facebook have more power means Facebook now have more money means now Facebook can put funds in research and funding in a more articulated way, in a more calculated way, rather than having 5 or 6 companies. Because those 5 or 6 companies, even if they put funding, the amount will be less, and the work will be divided. But when Facebook will put a funding in funding on something, there will be a large amount, and the work will be on a single project. Means now the outcome will be much more, rather than having 5 or 6 companies working on different 5 or 6 projects. Also, the reachability on the customers satisfaction, because when there are 5 or 6 companies, those 5 or 6 companies won't be able to reach their service in rural areas, in underdeveloped or underdeveloping or developing or underdeveloped countries. But when Facebook as a big company will work, now they have more intensive, and then now can even his service on rural areas or underdeveloped words brings losses, he can now have the luxury of having those losses. But when there are single company, but when there is a small company, those small company cannot afford to have those losses to have implementing their services in rural underdeveloping country. And the impact on rural or underdeveloped country is much more than the developed country, because developed countries have different options to choose from, but in rural or underdeveloped countries they have only 1 or 2 options, and if those 1 or 2 options don't work in that, means they have not done any, means that they don't have any other options. And when we are living in a free open world, when everything has to be connected in this world, connectivity is much more important. And breaking Facebook means we are cutting down, and we are taking those chances of connectivity from this rural or underdeveloped area, which the GovCase cannot provide us. Also, the other thing is that what we have shown you that regulation and data are more secret in our cases rather than their cases, and we can give you better benefit as a that will better benefit as a customer, and we can protect those underdeveloping or developing countries customers, and we can also fund research, we can give free services, we can reach connectivity in those sort of areas in a world where everything people has to be connected. And also those Facebook has incorporated and work much more better than 5 or 6 companies, because if you log into one thing means you have already logged into the other accounts, means now you are much more connected, and holding any events or organizations or business are much more easier when Facebook works as an incorporation rather than having 5 or 6 companies. So that's why we are proud to oppose.
All right, thank you, Speaker, for that speech. That concludes the opening half of the debate. To open up the closing half, let's invite Member of Government.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Awesome. So, starting in 3, 2, 1. Panel, the first half was trying to debate this house would break Disney, but we're going to change Disney for Facebook because it's exactly the same. It's not. It's a technology market and technology business. It's a little bit different. And most importantly, we don't understand it yet. At least politicians don't. Because of that, the entire counterprop of opening opposition is kind of hard to believe, because they never proved to us how effective they're going to be in creating legislatives against behemoth, which Facebook Incorporated is in the status quo. We believe that still they need to prove to us this effectiveness, that this legislative is going to be created, but also we can say, yeah, we need better legislative as well, and we are going to strive to actually create it, because we need to be absolutely sure that if everything that they're always saying, and if really Facebook Incorporated is an enemy, we need to be protected against them. But we believe it's simply untrue. It's a money-driven business corporation that is actually trying to, at any point, try to, fight in the capitalistic world and actually bid their company, bid a multi-billion profits on consumptionism, and in both worlds probably is going to do that. We don't understand exactly how we can stop them magically, but also if the only way to stop them is suing them, probably it's going to be easier to fight with them one by one rather than one in combine of 6 powers, right? For 6 or 7 or however we are going to break them up. Right? So because of that, we believe that on logical and mathematical level, it's significantly easier to actually fight with a smaller company rather than a huge company. It's actually incorporated in 6 smaller ones, right? But also the last thing I want to show you in this particular debate is that entire idea of now, to be honest, I'm just going to go with our extension. So what is going to change, what is not going to change? Let's first start with about what is not going to change in this particular debate. First of all, probably still there's going to be huge companies, right? We are talking about a policy motion. So it's going to take months, and it's going to take probably still huge multi-billion companies to be existing, in different places and different scenarios. It means that still Facebook is going to be huge, Instagram is going to be huge, and other companies that are in there, and LinkedIn, I have no idea who is also in Facebook Incorporated, is also going to be probably huge. It means that probably still is going to be pretty hard to fight with them on a legislative level, because still probably they're going to have strong legal power, and probably a lot of lawyers are going to be in there, right? So this is not a huge change. Yeah, they're smaller, not very much smaller, at least not in the power level. So we believe that because of that, it's kind of hard to weigh off how much more power we're going to have as governments, right? So because of that, that is not going to be a huge change. So what else is going to change? Probably us possessing big data is not going to change as well, because still smaller companies are capable of protecting themselves and still having some kind of legal boards in their corporations. So if they're scared of any kind of sue, probably they're going to protect themselves from everything. So because of that, we do not understand how strong OG's cases are in case of any kind of legal change and any case of the idea. Probably right now also the market works the same on both sides of the house. So we do not understand how, again, OG is proving the huge difference about incorporating the best possible ideas when you still want to be the best in the market and actually accumulate as many people as possible, right? So we understand there is some kind of change on OG, not a big one. What is changing? The transparency is changing, and the mentality of the companies, boards, and CEOs of those companies are going to change. Let's start with the first point. How transparency is changing? It's going to be a technology business. In the status quo, everything that you're dealing with, for example, Facebook trying to connect itself with Instagram, is actually company stuff and company business. It's impossible to find how exactly they're dealing, how exactly their data is flowing around, and how exactly their protection is between each social media. Right now, it's going to be 2 different companies. It means that probably you need to create some kind of offers, some kind of, trades, and some kind of, most importantly, public ways of cooperation, right? Because you are obliged to do that, because that's another company. It means you need to be absolutely clear how you're protecting your data and any kind of data sharing between other companies, how you're protecting and creating any kind of algorithm in this particular way in dealing with other companies. So sharing the data is going to be significantly harder, at least in case of any kind of spillage and any kind of protecting. So probably those companies will be obliged to actually protect our data. So it's going to be harder to happen, things like in 2015 happened for Facebook. It's not going to happen again, because they'll be significantly more careful about it, because they know they have legal cooperation created, and actually it's transparent, at least to the government. They need to be transparent with. It means they will just try to be absolutely sure how it's going to work in the first place. Second case of the idea of creating better social media, we believe we are also winning that, because probably when you are not obliged to cooperate, for example, Facebook and Instagram again, but you can actually cooperate with somebody else, you are significantly more power driven to create something better and to be more creative, because you're not more behemoth, and not a behemoth anymore. And connection with Facebook or Instagram is not something that is always going to be there, because if there's going to be somebody better, you're just going to exchange it, right? But most importantly, it's not absolutely a given thing anymore to actually cooperate between each other. Because of also this reason, on transparency level, we're winning on the quality of living and the protection of our citizens, of getting any kind of data about our private lives, about anything we are posting on Facebook, about our job offers or anything like that, is significantly more protected. About our political views as well, because it is something we're liking on Facebook most of the time, about who actually want to vote on how our information bubbles are created. Because of that, we are significantly more protected. Second thing, mentality of the companies. Even if it is harder, it is still hard to sue us, probably those companies know they're not covered anymore just as CEOs and boards, right? It's not a huge behemoth anymore. Before I continue, opening a position, question. Okay, none. So let's look at the mentality. They know they're not covered by other companies. It's not a behemoth anymore. It's a smaller company, still a huge one, but they know they're not so perfectly protected, right? And we are taking what OG was never able to prove, right? Because entire company is going to have a huge incentive to actually protect itself and to be absolutely sure they're not going to be sued by itself, or they're not going to get any spillage itself, right? They're significantly more driven to actually be absolutely protected, but most importantly, to have the best possible ideas and best possible creations. In the status quo, they know they're big enough and the corporation is big enough because most of the people are going to use Facebook. And when it's actually linked with other corporations and other social media accounts, probably it's easier for you to just connect itself because it's just going to be easier to use, right? Right now, it's not anymore created. So probably you're also going to create better ideas and just better social media accounts, social media pages. Because of that, we are going to have significantly better quality of living in case of social media technology usage and better protection of data. And if OO and OG was fighting about where we're going to protect this data better, we believe we're actually breaking this idea created by the first half, and we're showing to you why by the transparency or by the legal legions and by the mentality of the company itself, we're actually going to be able to incorporate that. Because of all those reasons, I'm very proud to propose.
Thank you, Speaker, for that speech. Let's invite Member of Opposition.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right, I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. The moment you are trying to break out Facebook in, it's going to be looking like how the debate has been going on in this chamber, because all the data are scattered everywhere and you are not able to see the core thing of what is needed for the users. It's not about good or not of the usage of social media, but it's on the effectiveness and efficiency of that social media under the principle two-way for the judges are first the utility, but second of all the privacy. And to deal with all of this, we're going to also talk about social media behavior coming from the users at the end of the day. Two things that I'm going to be talking about. Number one, I'm going to be talking about how at the end of the day, the comparative of social media behavior in both worlds. And second of all, how to take Facebook accountable at the end of the day. But before that, let's clear what entire government benches are talking about. First of all, the mechanism coming from OG is very unlikely to happen because they are trying to say that we're going to break it into smaller companies, but still they are going to be quite big, which is something that is confusing, because at the end of the day, it means that the logic of having no algorithm, having no big data, and at the end of the day, prevent any biases as well as bad practices would not happen at all under their side of the house, because we know that social media is driven to actually gather data and use that data in order to gain profit through the usage of ads, for example, and selling another form of bargaining, for example, towards another company instead of only having all this data at the end of the day. But we think that the data is being scattered are going to have three implications. Number one, the data holder would be various, which means that it's going to be directed anywhere without the consent of the users. Having one big corporation means that this data is only on that particular corporation, and it's going to be easier for us to take them accountable later on. Second the last thing, we say that all of these technology-based companies are still going to be driven by profit, meaning that the smaller companies in itself also going to be driven by profit. And the incentive to have more money is harder for the smaller companies because they are fighting with each other to get more money, for example. But we think that the idea of bigger companies, especially in technology, is that they are going to over the value proposition instead of having the real money in the amount of $1 million, $1 trillion, for example. At the end of the day, suing that both sides and all these CG are talking about won't likely to happen. And even if it happens, it's going to be better under our side of the house. We think that if you want to take the CG's case, it's going to be only a marginal advantage, because they only say that suing is better because you are going to be able to sue more smaller companies and government are going to be able to get more profit on that. We think that this is very harmful because the essence of social media is that it's democratized. It's one of the places where people having the open sources to form opinion, to create even smaller movement, for example, to sue their own government. All of these are provided by their own private companies that are not affiliated with government. This is very important because at the end of the day, we're able to form the capacity for society to also have a movement that is large enough to actually even take down the government, like in the case of Thailand protests, because they are gathering through Facebook. At the end of the day, the idea of power driven are going to be even harmful under cases of entire government benches. Let's move on to my first cases on the comparative. The issue of social media behavior that opening are trying to talk about, we say that this goes on to the corporation as well as the user. First, on the corporation, they want to have profits. That's why they go on to ads as well as having user engagement and activity. This is very crucial for the social media corporations because at the end of the day, they would like to form the new way of people are communicating and connecting with each other. For the users in itself, what matters for them is that they are able to have the culture of sharing and the issue of literacy of each country, for example, in the developed country and underdeveloped country, for example, matters. And therefore, this is not something that the entire issue of freedom of speech that social media is trying to hold about is going to be very bad, because we think that people forming opinion on social media is not bad. The problem is that there is an echo chamber that people are forming, and this echo chamber is actually not because of the fault of social media, but because people are taking all this echo chamber from their community, whether they are conservative, whether they are liberal, into the social media and only forming that to become echoing over and over again. So people have this capacity to actually think that Trump is a very God-like figure, for example, and we shouldn't vote for Biden at the end of the day. All of this is very unique for social media because technology-based company, even if they don't have big data, they still have cookies, so they know your IP address. Like all these issues of social media actually being sued is not the most effective thing that we need to think about, because the incentive of government to sue this is going to be likely lower under their side of the house, because government still need money that this social media is profited from the people that is using their social media. So the algorithm and big data exist under our side for the purpose of integration of communication, for people to have the easy access coming from even rural areas of all countries around the world. But second of all, how to actually take Facebook accountable on the issues of privacy. We think that the issue of privacy is that if you think that a company is too big to fail, it's going to be harder for you to take them accountable, or even for this company to actually think through and create changes on their own mentality as well as culture. We think there are three cases that we're going to break down. Number one, on the shareholders. We realize that innovation should be disruptive and value proposition should be increasing. This is what matters for Facebook, and therefore they're trying to create and merge more companies into their corporation. But second, on the user's trust, which is the utility principle in our side of the house, the competition that side government is trying to talk to you won't happen, because there should be a new way of communication, which is better under outside of the house, because we are now competing with Facebook, for example. TikTok, as one of the case, is a very creative new development that is based on the needs and wants of the users. The same way that Twitter still not fall short over Facebook, because they still have the value proposition that is needed for the users at the end of the day. All of this never be discussed by any benches. Lastly, we think that if you have governmental regulation, what could happen is that you have a cross-nation regulation, because the territory of Facebook currently is in the USA law, but the policy in itself can also be called out by the United Nations due to the fact that this data is actually cross-nation. All people are able to call out instead of boycotting them, because that's unlikely to happen due to the fact this is communication, that is social media behavior that people are addicted to that. Why is this interchangeable at the end of the day? Because Facebook is not the small company that you can actually just break out and everything is going to be better, because in our side of the house, you have a bigger advantage for the users as well as for the utility of everyone, as well as the capacity to actually go against this company if something bad happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker, for that speech. Let's invite Government Whip.
Okay, first of all, am I audible, dear panel?
You are, yes.
Okay, so just let me set up my timer and we can start. Sorry, let's like a moment. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, go. Dear panel, first of all, both oppositions are already losing this debate because we are giving a reptilian giving him an ability to actually impact our lives by holding almost all social media apps in his own hands. So we think that that's like on this basic principle they are losing this debate. But now seriously. First of all, what was bad in the MO speech, and why is it's not even like I think considerable should be considered in this debate. First of all, they are showing us that probably breaking this big corporation into many others will give us various data users that can easier spill the data elsewhere, like we have more leaks and etc. But Maciej already told you how these transfers are already more transparent and are easier to track because they are now company to the other company transfer, not the transfer in between the company itself, right? So probably it's easier to track them and they are more transparent because they are they are the transfers between two different entities, so they are easier to track in terms of any testimony, any any trial before in front of the Congress, etc. So I think it's better on our side because they are different entities, not affiliated with the government. If we have a government, if we have like Facebook that is not affiliated with any government, etc. First of all, Facebook the Facebook board of directors probably has their own political views, so probably they are already blocking some political agendas that are present on the Facebook in social media. So we think it's worse, right? But second of all, probably the democratic governments that have the jurisdiction over these companies because they are in the United States or in Europe, for example, probably have more values that are democratic, that are giving the equality, that are giving the tolerance, that all the good values that Western democracies gives us. So probably if they are suing this company, they will they are more likely to actually implement those values, those ideas to these company regulations instead of giving it to the private shareholder that probably is TikTok, which is Chinese company and actually cannot care about, for example, any stuff that is against Uyghurs or whoever, right? So probably we think it's better if those governments have more jurisdiction over these companies, and we already proved you. Maciej already proved why it's easier to sue those companies if they are broken up, if they are smaller, because government have actually an easier access to those companies, has more transparent transfers between them. So probably it's easier to actually sue them or have any evidence against them. So I think it's also important. Integration of the communication, the case that was most important on the CEO case. We don't have any mechanization why the people need to have cross-platform communication to actually have the communication to create e-culture or whatever, right? We think that if you're connecting on the same platform, which is, for example, Facebook, you can connect on, I don't know, like group chats on WhatsApp or whatever, right? We think that it is the same level of communication you can have if you have it cross-platform or not. So we don't think that the cross-platforming is such an important thing. So I don't see why it is important. And the stuff about TikTok and Twitter not falling to the into the Facebook Inc. hands, right? We think that probably many other apps and many other companies have already fallen into Facebook Inc. Hands. So yeah. It was Instagram, WhatsApp, probably there was Snapchat also is in Facebook Inc. So we think that they already have fallen there. So we think it is better on our side that probably it's harder, it's more competitive to actually take any other app into your own portfolio than on the other side of the house. So yeah, on the point of open, so CEO, we don't think that the cases is important, are important, and we already and we think that probably the cases brought by, to you by Maciej, that which are the transparency, how we have better social media in our world, and how the mentality of the inter-companies like interactions work are probably way more important, and I don't think the cases on the CEO stand. So on the cases, or on the all top half clashes that we think are not that happened in this debate. First of all, the oligopoly versus monopoly. We think that opening government didn't brought us any comparative against the opening opposition. So we think it is easier to get a conflict in the oligopoly if market is cemented between many companies. Then we have one monopoly and small fishes in the pond, right? So it's easier to actually have a conflict. So probably there will be more rivalry between them. So probably they will struggle to have more users, to have better services, to have better privacy policies, and we think it is going to be better. Probably smaller players are harder to incorporate, because if we have even taken the best case scenario of the opening opposition, if the market is cemented between the oligopoly of companies, probably it's harder to incorporate any smaller players, any more independent platforms, social media platforms, because it will tip the balance of power between those companies, and we think that probably any other company would not allow us this, and probably it will tip the imbalance. So probably it's not going to happen. So on a comparative, we have maybe not that much development on our side of the house in terms of policies, because the market is cemented, or maybe because there's a rivalry, there is going to be some marginal development, but it's going to be there, versus smaller fishes in the pond, swept out by Facebook, and probably not having any impact on the market or any well-being of the clients, right? So probably we think it is better. We already provided you a sufficient analysis about the accountability. That was also a clash on top half. We believe that this transparency is a huge and really important tool that gives us any avenue to actually give any kind of evidence against any company. And we think also that smaller companies are easier to sue and have less bargaining power than a huge monolith of a Facebook. Thank you. Proud to propose.
All right, thank you, speaker, for that speech. Let's invite our final speaker, Opposition Whip.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you are now.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, understand that what lacks in this debate is a clarification of how the proposals coming from government case, both sides, OG or CG, are going to happen, because they only taken for granted that somehow by breaking up Facebook, all of those kinds of things will be positive, or all of those goals that they want to reach can be reached. Simply saying by break up, suddenly everything are gonna be happen, or miracle does happen. Facebook suddenly will be a good boy, or even Instagram and WhatsApp or whatsoever will be a good tech company that will accompany or will keep safe the privacy data to begin with. We need to understand what kind of goals that government are gonna propose. They never really set a clear goals, a clear mechanism on how or why this thing is so important from the very first place. And they never really try to portray to us what is so important in antagonizing Facebook or by breaking them up to begin with. While on our side, as CG, as CEO, we are the only one that prove to you that users is the most important actor here, because first, users are the vulnerable actor, and second, this is the target of the Facebook or whatsoever companies are inside Facebook to begin with. So let's see one by one the cases, what is happening in this debate. Let's see from OG first. OG, clearly can be tackled down or shouldn't be the winner in this round simply because they didn't even understand the motion. They just want to ban algorithm, which is impossible, ladies and gentlemen. They want to have a fair competition, but we already explained to you that nowadays it is not only competition, but it is also the idea of collaboration, where even if the competition that you won by breaking up Facebook does exist, Instagram, WhatsApp, and LinkedIn, for example, will still collaborate with Facebook at the end of the day because it is the most beneficial things that they can do. Even if the CG's argument talking about how regulation, how transparent it will be, they never try to explain how transparent it will be and how the progress of the transparency will be. Because yes, you can make that agreement in a paper, in a piece of paper, but the technicalities, the practicalities that how you share your data is still a private things between Facebook or Instagram, for example. They can just share data easily. Even worse, Instagram is linked with Facebook before, so they will have the probability to do the merger or the collaboration. At the end of the day, this won't even change anything, and there won't be even a meaningful things by breaking up Facebook and so on and so forth. We have already explained to you by actually not breaking up, by having Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp whatsoever is integrated, it will have help the user to have this personalization, customization of interface, which will likely make the users want to use Facebook, Instagram, and so on and so forth more rather than when they are break up, because now they need to diverse or make a lot of account for only each apps, for example. This is so problematic, and this never been responded by the either opening or even closing government from the very first place. Let's see. They are trying to say that they want to change the social media behavior coming from the opening government, but they never really proved to us how to change it. They just simply said by break up suddenly people won't use Facebook more, or by break up people won't use how Instagram more. We say this is unfair to blame Facebook or even another apps because of the users behavior to begin with. We say this is only trying to antagonizing a business that is big or a business that is successful. We say the principle within opening government is a fallacy of argument where they are only thinking on one side perspective only, but they never really see the big picture there, ladies and gentlemen. This is why we say this is so problematic at the end of the day. Let's see what OO bring. OO said that by having this service interconnected, it will do cheap things. But we said that this is not the most important argument, right? The most important is users. Like what my MO already told to you before about the utility, about the privacy connection, and so on and so forth, and how innovation cannot be hampered just because they are interconnected. We said that collaboration is the key to win the market in the future. Collaboration is the key to win for everything, and we cannot only simply say that just because you are too big to fail, then we need to break you up from the very first place. Then the problem that, or the solution that government should give is not how to break up the companies, because it won't likely happen, because even that companies likely won't like to break up from Facebook to begin with, and you are forcing them. It is simply saying that your government is too authoritarian or something. We don't want that to happen in our government side, because there will be a lot of stories of bad things from government by breaking up the social media. Even worse, the idea of competition is a non-existent coming from government side of the house. We already show you the examples of even if Facebook is too big, there will still be another competitor. For example, like in China, there is Weibo, like there is Twitter or even TikTok and so on and so forth. We said that the competition still exists because technologies is unlimited and it have a lot of future possibilities. We say this kind of competition will be limited is only a non-existent argument coming from the government side of the house. So OO only explained to you how oligopoly is bad, but we already tell to you that the most important thing is users, and we are going to win this debate. Let's see what CGs bring. CGs bring a lot about transparency. They also bring a lot about mentality of company, what they are afraid of to begin with. Understand that the transparency that they have to prove, they have a lot or a big burden to prove how this transparency will help in the suing of the regulation to begin with. Because when the cases is small, because now it is different, Instagram will be Instagram, Facebook will be Facebook, then the problem or the cases will be smaller. Then the people that are going to investigate or the regulations toward them will also be non-existent, because it's not being seen as a real problem. But what happened in Cambridge or in the 2015 at the last year? Because it is a big case, therefore a lot of people are willing to sue Facebook to begin with. Because a big case or a big tech company needs a big effort, therefore a lot of people will take care or be accountable to this kind of thing and are gonna see Facebook work more rather than when they are being diverse or being divided one by one.
For
because
any
nobody will care or nobody will even think about that case as something important. Understand that this kind of privacy, this kind of selling information won't be stopped just because you suddenly break up Facebook and so on and so forth. There are no tangible harm or no tangible benefits coming from the proposals on the government side of the house. Let's talk about the mentality of company. They said that it will make the companies, for example, like Instagram, Facebook, or other divided companies will have fear because now they are alone. But no, we say they won't be alone. They will also search sponsors, benefits, and also they will also try to collaborate between each other. Therefore, this kind of mentality is nothing at all, is even cannot exist in the future or in the long run, because now they won't be afraid, because I have a friend of Facebook, I have a friend of WhatsApp, and the old friends that I have before I break up with Facebook to begin with. We say this is why the closing government cannot win this debate, or even worse, opening government cannot come over us, or even the opening opposition. We say this debate is coming into the opposition backs, because we simply understand and explain to you what is the benefits, what is the most important actor at the end of the day, how the democratization of what by having big tech companies or even Facebook monopoly, or even having this kind of integration with another apps is gonna be beneficial for all of this. We said that we proudly to oppose.
All right, thank you, speaker, for that speech. Thank you, everyone, for the debate. I think all debaters can exit the room now.
Thank you for the debate.
Thank you.